maximum. There is nothing around what happens below the maximum control level. And in the consent it says that MRP must manage the lake levels to ensure that they don't breach the maximum control level more than 1 year in 5. I'll get to more on that later. There are no controls below the maximum control level, and there are no controls on flood attenuation. And it's interesting that it removed the summer step, which was a previous control in to protect the lake during the summer when there was considered to be a higher risk around that. And they've, at the time of the consent, Mighty River Power showed that the risk was continuous throughout the year. Therefore, we would expect that the summer step should be in place throughout the year rather than at a higher level. Now, this is a graph you've seen before, and basically it's a frequency distribution, and the lake level is across the bottom, and the percentage of time that the lake spends at each level is shown on the left-hand axis. The red line is the distribution since 2003 when Mighty River Power took over. The blue line is the distribution between 1968 and 2003 under the old ECNZ rules, and then Mighty River Power when they took over from that. And the green line is the as natural distribution. One interesting point to note is that under the current resource consent, you can see a very spiky line off to the right there. That is actually a distribution that could be achieved that would comply with the current resource consents, because again, there is no control under the maximum control level, and you can see that there is where the MCL is. And I'll show you later on, or if you look at when we discuss it a bit later on, all of the big erosion events in the last 3 years that we've had have occurred below the maximum control level. So there is still a major risk of erosion below that maximum control level, but there are no controls on that in the consent. Under the current operating regime is not natural, and you've just seen that distribution there. On that, the lake is higher on average by about 50 millimetres. In the period from December 04 to June 06, which was when Mighty River Power first started operating the lake, under the consents, the lake was on average 250 millimetres higher than natural, and it did not go below natural for that whole period. So that's 18 months period when the lake was above natural. In January 2011, there was a major storm. At the beginning of the storm, the lake was 330 millimetres higher than natural. Since 2003, the maximum control level has been exceeded 3 times in 8 years, as compared to an allowance of once in 5. I think you can do the math to show that we're ahead of the game there at the moment in that. The lake now spends 44% of the year in the erosion risk zone, not 30% as existed under the as natural situation. That's an increase of 50%. So we've just increased the erosion risk on the lake by 50%. I don't think that's the effect the Commission has expected. I just have a quick analysis of the January 2011 storm, which is one where there was some major damage in Kuratau. At the beginning of the storm, the day the erosion started, the actual lake level was 330 millimetres higher than natural. Still within the resource consent conditions, but significantly higher. There's one little, again, mismatch that I have here, and I've read 2 or 3 reports on the storm. In one of them, Mighty River Power say they opened the gates on the 22nd of January. We have data from Reed's Farm, which is I think halfway between the control gates and the Hooker Falls, which we got from Mighty River Power under an Official Information Act request. That shows that they actually opened the gates on the 25th of January. In that period between the 22nd and the 25th, the lake rose 250 millimetres. Most damage actually occurred in the period from the 18th to the 24th of January, which was before the lake reached the maximum control level. During that storm, 10 metres of beach was lost at Kuratau, and by our estimates, it will cost about $1 million to replace that.
Look over, Johnny.
Oh, sorry. Sorry, about 10 metres of beach lost. It's $1 million to replace it. The current budget that TDC and the Regional Council have to carry out that works is $210,000. You can see the major mismatch there. Under Project Watershed, Mighty River Power pays 5% of the funds, which is $10,000 towards a $1 million budget. Again, you can see the mismatch, 1%. The September 2010 storm has a lot of similar characteristics, although the as natural versus actual is a whole lot less at the beginning of the storm. So the erosion effects may not be as significant caused by the hydro use of the lake, but still it is there. Interestingly, we have asked the Regional Council to carry out an assessment of the effects and to apportion them between the hydro use of the lake, sediment starvation from King Country Energy, and just natural processes, and we got a response that it wasn't actually important and it was wasting their time. So the future. What we would like is to have a review of the consents. We would like to have a closer monitoring of erosion and lake levels so that they can be matched, so that people actually understand the erosion process. To date, that still isn't occurring. We'd like the Regional Council to monitor and understand the lake levels off their own bat and independently of Mighty River Power. In 2008, when there was meant to be a review take place, or there was a possibility of a review taking place, the Regional Council relied on a report commissioned by Mighty River Power to assess natural versus actual. We would like the Regional Council to apply their own independent intellectual rigour rather than rely on reports from the consent holder. We'd like a consent that doesn't take us into uncharted territory, because that's where we feel we're sailing at the moment with the current consent. We'd like MRP to do what they said they'd do, which is to operate an as-natural regime rather than the regime that the Commissioners let them operate. And lastly, as you see there, we'd like the Regional Council and the District Council to work together to get the budgets needed to do the work and mitigate the damage. I know that you've got $200,000 from your own sources. I know that Mighty River Power, because I've had conversations with Gavin immediately behind me, have said they want to contribute significantly to that budget. I started that conversation with Gavin over a year ago, and to date, we're still talking. So what we'd love to do, and Scott, I look forward to your contribution as well, is we want people to stop talking and start doing. Because, I mean, I've got a house at Hatapi, and I know that 2010 we had a major problem. It's still sitting there, still at risk. There has been no mitigation. And I know that the issues that John Ridd's had getting it through this processes, but we need to have some action, please.